Hey, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here, your host. Hoping you're having a great season, whether you're just starting it or you're recovering from, let's say, an early season, you Sharpie hunters or your rough grouse hunters. Lots to talk about today. Maybe now is about the time you're taking stock. What you've been doing right, what you've been doing wrong. It might be a little bit of both, and that's the whole point today. I've compiled 29 different tips from pros that I've hunted with over the years, whether it's on TV or interviewed on the podcast or just for fun out there in the field. And their tips will probably help you in one way or another, whether it's taking care of your dog, hunting strategy, a little bit of everything else in there. So 29 tips, maybe one or more might be of value to you. We'll also cover how to cool your dog off. Early season, of course, big concern. That'll be the Handle It segment this time around. And you shared some incredible pictures, and I'm going to do my best to describe them to everybody else right here on the audio podcast. So keep your imagination cultivated, and we should have some fun with that one. It's all, of course, brought to you by Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Pointer Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrulockChokes Tubes, MidwayUSA.com, Purina Pro Plan Sport, Dog Food. Yeah, they're all supporting this broadcast and everything else I'm doing these days, so please support them as well. Well, around here this time of year, all I'm concerned with is keeping my dog intact. Pardon the pun. Yeah, he is that too. But beyond, that end of things, the other end is the one that matters. Trying to keep weight on Flick. He's the only wire hair I've ever had that's a hard keeper. The rest of them, they look at food and they gain weight, but Flick is not that way. And if he puts in 2, 5, 10, 15 miles on a hunt, you can see his ribs by the end of the day. So I'm doing all sorts of things. One of the things that I really like, and I might have mentioned it before, here's tip number 30. I use a powder from Elements Nutrition that's called Gainer. You just put it on his food. It seems to be pretty palatable. I don't mix it with anything. It's nothing like that. It's just a weight gain formula from Elements.dog. That's where you learn more about it. If you're concerned about your dog's weight loss and resultant energy dip, that might be worth taking a look at. Foot care, of course, always a concern, and monitoring that in so many ways. Someday I'll do a little bit on nail care. I think that's more important than we might think. It's a geometry problem, among other things, but that, of course, also on the list. You were asked on social media to top the picture that I put up there on, it was kind of the approaching thunderstorm out there in Montana that we were up against. It actually kiboshed an entire day of hunting, but it was a pretty good picture. But I asked you all to share some of your pictures as well, and boy, did you come through. George Cummins, always good to see you and Samson together out there in on the prairie. I'll just call it that. And isn't it cool? Beautiful, beautiful shot there. And Samson, of course, in fine form. I hope everything is going well with you. This is a vast prairie with, shin-high grass. George and Samson as close as they can be while George is kneeling down. You know the feeling you get when you're in such an incredible sea of grass? Well, they have it. Yeah, beautiful. Good job. Another great, I guess I'll call it a scenic from you, Lance Larson. Speaking of Weimaraners, there's one in the foreground. It's everybody's back, and I love those pictures of people without faces sometimes. Now on TV, I'm the opposite. One of my rules as a producer is always show faces. but once in a while on a still photo, it's kind of cool. You and a partner, looks like you and your dogs are ascending a mesquite and yucca covered hill. My feet hurt just looking at it, but it's beautiful. It's high desert, and boy, I bet you're after gambles. Maybe some scalies up there. Yeah, beautiful shot. Robert Murphy, grouse hunting foliage, absolutely. You're on a kind of a bare spot with some sage in the foreground, but yeah, I see it. I see the aspens down there in the draw. Then I see the conifers going up the hill. Just reading about that, in fact, that is kind of classic Western grouse hunting country with the mix of conifers and the sort of hardwoods, deciduous trees, if nothing else. Lynn Glock, a man after my own heart. Or is it a woman after my own heart? Oh, it is a man. Now I can see your picture too, Lynn. Sharptail country, clearly. Knee-high grass, a fence on both sides of the photo, but the gate is open. Did you do that on purpose? That is philosophy distilled to its essence when it comes to bird hunters. Beautiful shot. You can see the curvature of the earth. The view is so vast. Beautiful job. Let's see if I can find, oh yeah, let's end with this one. Grant Goblish, grouse and woodcock country, you call it. You know, I'm a little colorblind, but I'm going to say because the sky is so blue and reflected in the lake and kind of influencing the light surrounding your beautiful setter, who's, heck, for all I know, he's looking for a duck on that lake, but he is gazing across the lake at some pretty good rough grouse country over there. It looks like a mix of deciduous and coniferous trees with the reflection of all those trees on the lake. Yeah, if you enjoy photography, go to one of the social media pages and take a look at all of those beautiful shots. I could only share a few with you. I hope I've painted a picture or two that are worth your time, and thank you all for contributing. That part of the show is brought to you by PointerShotguns.com. Yeah, even this late in the game, and even this late in the year, they've got your shotgun. Their dealers have them in stock. These guys are going, pardon the pun, great guns to get you product right now. They bring it in by plane. They don't wait for a slow boat from wherever they're getting it. Neither do their dealers. They've always got something in stock, and you might want to take a look at some of the, for most of us, I'll call them upgrades from one configuration to another, over and under to a side-by-side, from a pump to a semi-auto, etc., and all the finishes. Learn more about them, including their best over and under for less than $500, according to Target Focused Life. That's the Pointer Acreus. Shop around at PointerShotguns.com, then stop in at a dealer and get your new next shotgun. Yeah, and speaking of mid-season or the beginning of the season when you're slapping your forehead wishing you'd gotten X, Y, or Z before you left on that last trip, MidwayUSA.com, they've got just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Some great new dog training and dog care products in there as well. Just saw another bird launcher. If you're a dog trainer and you got pigeons or quail or something like that, now they've got a DT Systems bird launcher on their website, among other things. So whatever you need, from ammo to boots, it's all there at MidwayUSA.com. Sign up for their email or text messages and get 10% off your next order. MidwayUSA.com. Okay, welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here, your host, doing a solo turn this time. Made a project of pulling out all the good stuff from folks who I've hunted with over the years. And boy, there is so much in there. I hope you will learn something from something in there. So let's get started before I get bogged down in something else. I'm reminded of a great proverb, I believe came from Belgium originally. And it sums up this whole idea here. Maybe you can relate. Experience is the comb Mother Nature gives us after we're bald. Yeah, a lot of these valuable lessons come too late, or they come at a cost. We learn them the hard way, and that's my goal today, is to help you. Wouldn't it be great just once to learn it the easy way? Yeah. Now, most of us have attended the School of Hard Knocks. Some of us have even graduated, and some of us were there on an athletic scholarship, so the bar was pretty low. But based on all of those experiences, and thank you everybody whose ideas I'm going to share today, most of us are glad to share the pain and spare the pain from you. So here are some of those practical lessons from folks whose limbs, lungs, and minds are now fully healed from the learning process. Let's start with dog work in the field. That is probably uppermost on many of our minds right about now. Here's one thing I'm really working hard at. In fact, I had to put something somewhere in the back of the truck to remind me of this, and that is start every hunt with a refresher course for you and your dog. And it'll help both of you. When you're ready to take your dog out of the crate, which ought to be the last thing you do, run a couple obedience drills. It calms him down. It reminds him that hunting is work and that you want to work as a team. And finally, it helps him focus on compliance. It makes clear that no matter the surroundings, no matter the location, he still has to follow the rules. Yeah, once you're both warmed up, then you can probably hit the trail. Ronnie Smith, my friend, and Susanna Love Smith at Ronnie Smith Kennels are real strong advocates these days of calming a dog prior to training and prior to a hunt. And I can't think of a better way than this. So think about a pre-hunt obedience session. Short, sweet, just a reminder. I'm trying to do it. Maybe you will too. Here's one that I was reminded of this morning when I was running Flick on the home covey here, which I didn't know was going to be where it was. Steadiness is sometimes overrated. Not all the time, but sometimes. I hunted with a German hunt test judge several years back, and her Drahtars were in alongside a sunflower field, and they were pointing, creeping. Finally, Hungarian partridge got up out of the thickest part of that sunflower field. And yeah, we got a couple of shots, and everything was wonderful. But at the end of this, I'm thinking, well, boy, she knows her stuff. I mean, she's an American that the Germans bring over to test German dogs. So I asked her, and she said basically sometimes the dog's primary job, and he'll figure it out, is to put birds in the air for the guns. However that needs to be done. So, maybe cut a dog a little bit of slack in certain situations. Running birds are a perfect example. Whatever it is, give them a break sometimes. Somebody has to do the pushing. Maybe it ought to be the dog instead of you. Hunted with some Épagnols, Breton breeders, trainers, and bird hunters a while back, and they even have a word for it. If they want their dog to do the pushing, carefully, slowly, strategically, they'll instruct that dog with the term couler. So, if you want to be like the French chasseurs and you're not part mountain goat, perhaps you teach another command. Okay, shut up and handle your dog without scaring birds by using hand signals. I could do a whole podcast on stealth, and maybe I will. But at this point, just a quick reminder, friendly reminder. It may be a little too late for the early season, but eventually, and a lot of this is just body English. Maybe you're already doing it and you don't know it. You'll find more birds and you'll get closer to them, and thus you'll get better shots if you're not yelling or using your whistle as much as some people do. And if your hand signals aren't working, here's something I learned from a trainer a long, long time ago. He was doing it with puppies. I said, I do this with my hands and this with my, and it doesn't work. He says, well, here's what I do to get a puppy to come back to me, especially if they're bringing a toy or maybe a bird wing or something. He leans over and he opens and closes his hand. And out of that, what I took away was motion will help make your hand signals more effective. I said this to a veterinary ophthalmologist many years back, and she said, well, of course. Dogs see moving objects way better than they see stationary objects. So if you got hand signals, maybe put a little action in them. Good human. Yeah. Just don't go all jazz hands on us unless you're shooting a TikTok. And if you are, warn us, because some of us don't really want to watch it. Okay. Physics. As the day goes on and ground heats up, warm air rises from the bottom of the draws, the valleys that are way off in the distance, river canyons. Yeah, warm air rises. So if you're hunting, get a little higher, maybe get to the top of the ridges and let your dog work that breeze as it's coming up the hill. Some of the best bird hideouts are just below the ridge tops, and if your dog is up there, he can catch that scent without busting through them. And speaking of stealth, that other button on your e-collar transmitter, tone? Boy, I love that one. I use it for 2 or 3 different commands. You can train for that too. Not the beeper. No, that's too loud in many cases. But if you're trying to be stealthy, tone or even that vibrate component on some collars, if you have trained for that already, you know what I mean. But even in the field, if you're just trying to get a dog's attention, that tone or that vibrate may just do that. And then you can give a hand signal, or you can give a whistle signal, or you can call the dog to do whatever you want it to do. Like I said, if you can overlay that stuff in the yard first, just like you would any other command, that would help a lot. Here's what I learned the hard way, and then I became the hero. We were hunting pheasants down some Milo fields in Northeast Oregon years ago. And hey, this might be an original idea, so I'm going to take a little credit for this one. We were constantly frustrated by these birds, roosters, that were running down the crop rows ahead of us. We didn't have any blockers. It was 2 hunters and a couple TV cameras, so no blockers. And these were relatively long rows, and those birds would just get ahead of us and keep going and fly at the other end of the field. So I was close enough to the edge. At one point, I just said, to heck with this. And I got out onto the bare ground and unloaded my gun, broke it open, unloaded it, and ran up 100 yards and became a temporary blocker. I milled around a little bit, made a little noise, just became visible and that sort of thing. And sure enough, it worked. Now, I don't know if it blocked all the birds, but it blocked a few here and there in other ways. And that made the difference between a good episode and a great episode. So if you're seeing birds squirting out at the far end all the time and you're outnumbered, consider somebody becoming a temporary mobile blocker here and there, just for giggles. Many times I've learned this lesson as well. Al Gadori, thank you for pointing it out to me. Yeah, I'm a slow learner, but I do learn. A lot of times, roosters, of course, hunkered down quail, even sharptails, and that's where I learned it most. I was on a slope with Al and a couple TV cameras, and we'd walk through a pretty good-looking piece of sharptail territory, and we had nothing. But as we got towards the end, what we saw was birds flying out from behind us, and I'm thinking, geez, how did that happen? There's two of us, two dogs, that's all. They'd kind of just got to the edges of our path and stayed there until we got past them, and then they flew out the other way. You probably had that happen with the ringnecks, if nothing else. So now, what I'll do is I will turn around and come back against the wind or with the wind, it doesn't matter. I will come back through the same country again. If it's good-looking territory and you're scratching your head at the end of that walk and you're saying, well, man, you'd think there was a bird in there. Well, there might be. So consider doubling back, trying the other direction for a while. You never know. It's just, you're there already. If it does look good, why not? Let's see. One more. And this one, this is one I was pointed out at a NAVDA hunt test. One of the judges, thank you, Phil Swain, for this one. Yeah, I do have a face for radio and podcasts, but my dog doesn't care. He still likes it, apparently, because he still seeks guidance on what direction to go in large part from the brightest part of my anatomy, my face. And I've talked before about not obscuring your eyes. There's plenty of reasons for that. Or not bringing your hat brim down too low. All of those things the dog can see, or in that case, not see. They want to be out in front of you most of the time, at least a well-bred, versatile dog does. But if they don't know which end is the front and which end is the back, they're a little confused. Try it sometime. Make sure the dog can see your bright and smiling face, and chances are he'll move to the front so he can see it. Yeah. Hey, there's some infield stuff. Here are some hunting strategies. Scott Linden here with the Upland Nation podcast. These might help you when things are, tough, or when you're thinking about trying a new spot, or when you're thinking about the third time at an old spot that simply hasn't produced for you for a while. And I know that feeling. It's part and parcel to my hunting strategy, I think. But speaking of hunting strategies, here are some that you might want to employ. Thank you, Pete at Pig Eye Outfitters, for this one. There's no perfect hunting route because ultimately you got to get back to the truck, to your cynical hunting buddies, or to the ice chest. But you can get the most from any hunt and any breeze by hunting in a big loop, a giant circle. Think about it. No matter what direction you go, 3 of the 4 directions are going to have okay or even exceptionally good wind. You'll only have the wind at your back for 1/4 of that walk. And if you're like me, the wind will have changed directions by then anyway. So if there's any chance that you can describe a big circle when you're doing your hunt, you might have a little bit more favorable wind conditions. Okay. And for that last one, no, don't walk backwards, especially while you're holding a loaded gun. One of my strategies, especially when I'm hunting a region with lots of public access, is to start the day at the farthest public access I'm going to try and hunt that day. First off, you can get up before shooting hours and drive. It's a lot easier to drive in the dark before everybody else is on your favorite spot already. So start early, get to that spot right at the opening of shooting hours. Most humans don't do that, and I've seen it in every state I've ever hunted in. Most people will go to the nearest spot, open the door, drop the tailgate, and go hunting. You go all the way to the far end, to the county line or whatever, start there. Then, when you're done there, or somebody else beat you to it, or it's not producing, all of the subsequent spots are basically on the way back to camp or on the way back to the hotel. So when you are done for the day, happy hour is a little bit closer. You don't have a long return back to where you go. And of course that means that first malty, frosty beverage is a little bit closer. Thank you, Sergeant Ben Warner, Airborne, for this one. I've employed it a lot. You made me, you shamed me into this, and maybe other people might benefit from it as well. When all else fails, walk another mile. Yeah, in addition to Ben, Coach Vince Lombardi of the Green Bay Packers. Oh, by the way, if you're that young, they won the first Super Bowl. Look it up. Anyway, Coach Lombardi said, you don't win the game on the field, you win it in the weight room. So get in shape and then walk a mile farther than everyone else. That has paid off more often than I care to think. I know it's a lot of work. But right over that next rise, the reason the bear went over the mountain is to see what he could see. Sometimes it's a draw full of birds. You know, out in the West, most of our birds don't have near the cover that, say, you upper Midwest rough grouse hunters encounter. So when birds flush out here, what they will often try to do is put some sort of obstacle between you and them. And if you're on the Chucker Hills, it might be a point, a ridge that drips down into a draw. They'll swing around that. Or big pile of boulders, or the one juniper tree on the slope, whatever it is. Quail do that a lot too, and they fly low when they're doing it. But whatever bird you're hunting, when you're approaching your dog, you have a drill, I hope. Consider also, among all the other things you need to worry about there, like setting your feet right and all, is to set your feet right for that obstacle, that protection that the birds are probably going to fly toward. If it's a roughie, it'll probably be a tree trunk. If it's a pheasant, it might be your hunting buddy. So be careful. Chucker, that point is over the next state's border. Okay, I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast, learning from other people who learned the hard way. Now here, you don't have to. We got a lot more to come, and our Handle It segment, which will also be on taking care of your dog. This time around, it'll be cooling your dog off during the early season, so hang around for that. Just a couple quick messages, and then we'll be back with more tips. We're brought to you by HiVizSites.com. I was helping somebody shoot a weekend or two ago, and I mentioned the concept. And first there was a blank look on his face, and then there was kind of that look that says, yeah, the light bulb just went off. You don't aim your gun, we know that. But your head, your mind has to see the muzzle in order to create that relationship between the muzzle and the flying target. Whether you're clay target shooting or you're hunting, you must have that relationship. And HiViz Sights interlocking light pipes systems allow you to do that. You can switch out the colors. They're easy to install. Most of the time it's a magnet. You just slap it onto your rib and you're ready to go. You never have to look at it because you're always looking at it. Watch the video at HiVizSites.com. You'll see what I mean, and you'll see what you've been missing. HiViz Sites.com. And have you cleaned your gun since the last hunt? Well, maybe it's just a little too inconvenient. Head over to sageandbreaker.com and take a look at their gun bore cleaners, their shotgun bore cleaners. 3 pieces. You can get as aggressive or as dainty as you like when you're cleaning out the bore. There's also that CLP, the spray-on cleaning, lubricating, and protection fluid that I use after every hunt. Those 2 things alone will take good care of your gun throughout the season. Learn more at sageandbreaker.com. And welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here. I may not. I'm a good note taker. Let's put it that way. So after a hunt or even after a discussion, I'll make notes on what I learned from somebody else because I don't have many original ideas, and other people have already learned the hard way often enough as well. So here we are in the midst of 29 tips from folks who are smarter than me and maybe smarter than you, that you can now use without having to learn the hard way. No scabs, no cuts, no first aid required. Just learn. Okay, I'm gonna give this one. This is one I'm in the middle of a 4-year experiment on pad care, and we're going to talk about a few other things too. But dog care while hunting or pre-hunting. Pad care is one of my things. Most people believe, and hey, if it works for you, great. Toughening up a dog's pads is counter to what I think keeps your dog's pads intact, healthy, without cuts, without peeling. Think about it this way, and maybe you'll understand. If you, like me, in undergraduate school or even now, work with your hands a lot, you get calluses on your hands. And what do you do when you're sitting there watching a football game? You're picking at those calluses and you're peeling them up, and then, gosh dang it, I wish I hadn't done that because now I got all that ugly bare skin and it hurts. That's what toughening up a dog's pads does. It creates a pad that is basically a callus. And then what happens to it? It dries up and it separates from the deeper layers of skin, especially when it hits something unfriendly, a rock, a stick, rough ground. That callus peels, tears, and that's the end of your hunt. Think about it this way. A dry, brittle leaf in your left hand, a supple green one in your right hand. Make a fist. Open them up. The supple green one reopens, is flexible and undamaged. The dry, brittle one is in pieces, just like your dog's pad. So I do 2 things. All year, every couple days, I put foot cream on Flick's pads. And I mean anything that looks like a pad, way up to that carpal pad up on towards his elbow. But the entire pad, in between the pads, the edges, the front where the nails are, all of that gets a nice coating of foot cream every couple days during the off season and every day at the end of a hunt. First thing during every hunting day, he gets one of those many preventive pad care solutions out there, and there's a million of them. I like Happy Jack's Pad Coat, K-O-T-E, Pad Coat. Doesn't matter which one you use, and some are more convenient or some smell different than others, whatever it is. I use that in the morning, and then, like I said, foot cream at night. Most of the time, when you're looking at your dog, off season or on, his pads will have fewer cracks. When you're putting that foot cream on, you'll notice it. And then during the day, it's coping better with all the things that could tear that callus and damage your dog's foot to the point where he's on the injured reserve list. So thanks for bearing with me. I probably won't talk about it again, I promise. Yeah, fat is to dogs what simple carbohydrates are to humans. So if you want your dog to have a quick energy burst on a hunt, offer a low volume, high fat food. You don't want a lot of stuff in his belly for a lot of reasons. I won't give you a lecture on that. So what can you use? I like raw egg yolks. No, put it in a little baby food squeeze tube or something like that, and give that out in little bursts every hour or two. Or, if you got a Ziploc bag and some ham fat, I trim it all off and I put it in the freezer. Give them a little bite of ham fat every once in a while. Those are two good ones that I like a lot. And then just a quick reminder, always have these in your vest, and I'm not going to hit the whole list. It's at finebirdhuntingspots.com, but make sure you got some duct tape, emergency boot, that's what it is, yeah. Some cotton swabs, a hemostat, some distilled water, if nothing else, to wash the stuff out of his eye or to irrigate a wound before you put some antibiotic ointment on it or something. Those are the things that are most important. There's a whole list. It's probably a dozen or so items at finebirdhuntingspots.com. All right, so you're out there. You've been practicing at the range, but the rubber meets the road when you start shooting at real birds. You want to shoot better? Well, be strategic about approaching your pointing dog, or even a flushing dog if you can watch the tail and he's getting birdie. Do the same things. If you got a dog on point, one of the things you want to be careful about is how you approach him. If you come in right next to him and walk past, what does that imply to a dog? Well, if they learn to heel, that's one of the things that they noticed about it. So swing wide on him. Don't come back in and get between the dog and the bird, because then he might move so that he can continue to see the bird, especially when it flies. Can you blame him? Eventually, you're going to send him to pick it up. It'd be helpful if he knew where it was going first, right? So swing way wide, maybe try and get to the opposite side of the bird. Those are things that will help your shooting and keep your dog more steady. If you're hunting hilly terrain, you know what I mean. When possible, try and get below the birds for the most natural shot. If you can get below a covey of chuckers, then that notorious downhill shot we all have to make is not downhill anymore. They're starting above you. So at least for a while, it's a rising shot, if you want to call it that. And open your chokes. If you're hunting, most of the time we're going to kill birds at 25 yards, maybe 30. I don't even throw my gun up for anything farther than that. So open your chokes. You'll get a nice wide pattern and maybe hit more birds. Have you checked for eye dominance? Well, again, go to findbirdhuntingspots.com. I've got a whole article on that. But if you keep missing, and I did the whole first season, then I went and took the lesson. Thank you, Buzz. And he pointed out, well, of course you're missing. You're left-eyed, but you shoot right-handed. All right, there's a lot of solutions. Just dig into the website and you'll find it there. And I don't know if this one is the placebo effect or not. It might be ballistic performance, and there's some science behind that, as our friends have taught us over the years. Better ammo seems to kill more birds. Yeah, copper plating or other plating will keep those pellets rounder as they're exiting the shotgun barrel, so they will fly straighter. That always helps. And remember, you only need one pellet. So if your pellets are all round and not deformed, maybe one of those will be going in the right direction. At the range, yeah, we all use the cheap stuff, and that's fine. But also at the range, remember, only perfect practice makes perfect. Most of the time, I translate that in my situation as shoot fewer rounds, but shoot them better. Be more deliberate in your technique. Make sure everything is working right. Then pull the trigger. And then quit one box earlier than you thought you should. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I think we're at about tip number 21, maybe 22, somewhere in there. And I'm going to skip a few, so don't hold me to it. But anyway, we're moving on to the stuff that you might do in advance, well in advance of any trip or any season for that matter. If you're looking for places to hunt, some spots that most people never look at it and have paid off for me. I was going from one place in South Dakota to another place in South Dakota, and we had to cross one of the many dams, which in large part are more like giant dikes across the Missouri River. So we're going to go cross one of those from point A to point B. But before we do, nature calls, and Flick and I have to pile out of the truck at a little parking area administered by the, it was the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. You know, they do a lot of stuff by waterways. They have dams. They have lots of facilities. And quite often, they might have a campground nearby. So we were stopped at this Corps parking place with a little park. And I thought, what the heck? There's nobody here. There's nice open ground right down there. Let's go down there. Public ground, federally administered, but owned by you and me, Corps of Engineers. What did Flick do? Pointed. And then pointed again. Sharptails. Yeah, right there on the breaks of the Missouri, owned by an agency that most people just ignore. There are others like that. So if you're looking at a map, take a look at all of these kind of places. The Bureau of Reclamation is another one. The TVA, or out west in the Northwest, it's the Bonneville Power Administration. Lots of low-profile agencies administer thousands of publicly owned acres, your lakes, dams, and rivers. That's a new source of public access hunting. And don't forget that while a refuge may have waterfowl conservation as its primary purpose, or waterfowl production, quite often a lot of that ground is high and dry. I've had some great bird hunts on waterfowl production areas. Take a look at state school lands. Some counties have forests, especially in rough grouse country. National monuments, state parks, and state forests. Yeah, the big two, Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management, yeah, they get all the glory, such as it is. But all those other public agencies are managing our ground as well. All right. I love my online mapping app. Just bear in mind that their original source material may be suspect sometimes. This was a fishing trip many years ago, but the helicopter landed in the meadow next to our camp in the middle of nowhere. And the guy came out with a big BLM map. We're still sitting there scratching our heads wondering what the heck for. So he comes over and he says, "Hey, how you doing?" Trying to be, nonchalant about it. And ultimately, he tells us they're lost. So we open up that map, and those big public agency maps, you could roll one up and sleep in it. And he says, so where are we? So we trace that big river up this tributary and the North Fork of that tributary to camp. We put an X on it with his Sharpie. He said, "Oh, great. Thanks." So he said, "Hold on, everybody. What the heck are you guys doing here?" He said, "Well, we're from the U.S. Geological Survey." Read. Those are the guys who make the maps. "And we're trying to find this spot up here because we need to monitor the gold mining activity in that area." Okay, so the lesson? The guys who make the maps don't even know where they are sometimes. Some of the maps are dated or inaccurate. I've seen wrong names. I've seen wrong locations. So ground truth, everything that's critical when you're using an online mapping app. It may not be their problem, but the data they get is largely from public employees who won't get fired if they make a mistake, but you may get lost. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay, we're down to it here, and I just want to thank everybody who's been willing to share something with me and my friends and everybody else, and now you're my friends too. Experience is the best teacher, and the worst experiences teach the best lessons. So if you've guided me, been on the TV show, done a podcast interview, gone hunting with me, or trained somewhere, or tested somewhere, or trialed somewhere, thank you. I can't name all of you or we'd be here for another half hour, but your tips are incredibly useful. I'll be back with the Handle It segment and one more tip right after a quick word from TrulockChokes.com. Now these guys, they weathered the hurricane and came out. What do you say? They came out of it just fine, thank you. Their quality control program, their materials, highest quality U.S. produced steel, the most exacting specifications for all of their engineering. It's all there. Learn more. They've got 2,000 choices when it comes to choke tubes. TruLock is spelled Trulock, TrulockChokes.com. Lifetime warranty, satisfaction guarantee. And there's always an incentive at the website. Save a few bucks. Check them out. TrulockChokes.com. And in spite of all the other tips, one tip that I have taken to heart is feeding Pro Plan Sport dog food from Purina. You want to learn why? Go to ProPlansport.com. Only one dog food brand fuels the most sporting dog champions. Yeah, If that isn't an endorsement, I don't know what is. If you're out to win your own game, whether it's a successful hunt, a field trial, doesn't matter. Take a look at all the formulations at ProPlansport.com and start feeding your elite athlete the food that most champion trainers and handlers feed their dog. Yeah, so it's early season, keeping our dogs cool, whether it's during the day or at the end of a hunt, always a challenge. Yes, we can administer water orally. Yes, so give them plenty of water, of course. But if you're swinging by the truck and you've got an ice chest, thank you, Curtis Fry, for this tip. Put a towel in the bottom of your ice chest in the morning. By midday, that towel will be all wet and slightly cool from the ice. Wrap your dog in it for a moment or two. You want to be careful if it's really cold, but if your dog is really hot, a couple seconds of that will bring his temperature down really quickly. At the end of the day, of course, all the things are important. Give him water and give him a quick cool down with another wrap of that wet, cool towel from your ice chest. Yeah, that portion of the show brought to you by Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, Hunters, Champion Shooters, and Sub-Gauge Central. If you're looking for a new gun, and aren't we all about this time of the season, maybe something a little lighter, a little bit, quicker swing, whatever you're looking for, Sub-Gauges might be your ticket to ride. Of course, Dave Fiedler knows those inside and out. You heard him talk about them a while back on the podcast. Call Dave at MidvalleyClays.com and ask him where to start your search, what you're looking for, why you're looking for it. He's the guru in that world. Once you decide, he can ship anywhere, anytime. Make him your first stop when it comes to shopping for a sub-gauge gun at MidvalleyClays.com. Well, thank you all for your suggestions, for your advice, for your participation in all the things we do on social media. Great comments, beautiful photos, and lots of lessons there. If you left a rating or a review, thank you very much. We are growing by leaps and bounds, and it's due to you and your recommendations. And of course, thanks to our sponsors, Sage and Breaker, Purina Pro Sport, Mid-Valley Clays, TrulockChokes, MidwayUSA.com, Pointer Shotguns, and HiViz Shooting Systems. I'll bet there's more details on every one of those tips at findbirdhuntingspots.com. Hopefully, I'll see you there. I'm Scott Linden. Thanks for listening to the Upland Nation Podcast.